having approached the more traditional avenues that people think of when they talk about the green energies and the New Deal of energy-related projects, it is time to look at a more conventional source that has the potential to be of a very great energy boon for mankind and has the potential to be part of the Green New Deal. And it has the potential to be economically viable, as well as to build upon technology that already is existing, although it is still in its primitive forms at the moment. And that is nuclear energy. When people speak of nuclear energy, they normally think simply in terms of energy produced by the splitting of atoms, to put it in lay terms, and that the energy produced when an atom is broken apart is then used to heat water, so the water in turn can turn turbines, ultimately meaning that nuclear energy in the way that it is used today is little more than kinetic energy of water. However, there is raw energy produced in the fission of the nucleus of an atom. When an atom is taken apart, when electrons are removed from an unstable isotope, energy is produced. However, fusion, where you take two unstable isotopes or even stable isotopes under tremendous pressure and push them together and bind them, create even more energy while creating a heavier element than that which was in the beginning. This is what is occurring throughout the cosmos. This is what occurs in the interior part of the sun. This is what occurs when stars are being born. The gases, if you wish to think of it in that way, the loose elements start coming together, and they ever form tighter and tighter bonds with greater weight pulling in. And as they pull in and collapse on themselves, they create heavier and heavier elements. This is the way your elements have been created throughout all of your known universe. The problem with this has been that science in its infancy has not found a viable way to contain this at a reasonable cost. But it has found that it can split atoms, and since they do not need to be contained as much, they can use that energy in a crude manner to simply heat and thus produce a kinetic energy. But this is only a beginning. What you need to look at is several different individual issues. These are, first, what is the reality of there being a radiation problem? Because you use something that is unstable and you produce something then that is unstable. So, how do you store this? Or how do you continue to use it? Might be a better question. And why have you chosen to use what you use to create this sort of energy? Do you think it has to be so terribly unstable? So, that would bring us to the first issue of radiation. Radiation is a natural part of all that is occurring throughout the cosmos. You are protected on the Earth from radiation by the magnetic fields of the Earth. That is the basics of how it works. However, radiation is normal, even on your planet, and even each individual radiates energy from within their own being. All animals, all trees, all life as you know it, and all life as you don't know it, since you don't recognize that all things are living. But we tell you that all things are living, and all things radiate some energy. So if that is the case, then the question becomes, if you are using radiation, when does it become dangerous? It becomes dangerous when it surpasses the norms of what you would be exposed to in your usual living environment. And that means that ultimately, if you are going to use fusion or fission, you must find a way to reduce radioactivity. Well, you know right now that if you are using fusion, that becomes less of a problem. Even though you look at your sun and you know your sun sends off massive radiation, the real problem there, for you produce even more energy, the real problem is containment. So now looking at that which is practical to you at the moment, for you must begin with what you can do. The question becomes, how can you continue to divide something down further and further so the same element becomes usable again and again? And then you look and you say, or is that a fact that you may need to isolate between fission and fusion, and thus refuse that which you have divided, thus creating a source of energy that will last longer through its crude use in the way that you now use it. However, if you use that energy as a direct form of energy instead of simply a way to promote a kinetic energy via steam, but if you actually use this as a direct energy, it becomes even more powerful. Now, that being said, it is important that you realize then that you can use the isotopes you've been using, take those broken down isotopes, restabilize them into another usable material, and break them down again, and then do the same until you have reduced them via their half-lives to a relatively nominal state of danger where it will not be as important how or where such is stored, just as long as it is kept within reason. Now, that touches on the one side of things, which is fission. But look at fusion, for that is the future to which you have not yet come. And that is something that will be developed by actually learning how to utilize a container where the inside of the container itself, where your action is taking place, can be formed as would be crystals. Think about this. If you want to have crystals seeded, you start by having crystals and then you build upon that. So if you have a hard isotope or element that you wish to build, then you line the inside of your container with that element. Then what you do is, in the process of your actual fusion, you work to create that same element so it develops and continues to build the lining of your container. And thus you can utilize that container, it ever growing stronger until its capacity is reduced to the point that it becomes unusable, and then you simply dispose of the container. Now, what we have said, we understand, will be some years in the future, for you must work on the development of this. In the meantime, it is important to understand, as a part of your Green New Deal, that the radiation is less harmful to the environment in many ways than are other potential harmful things like altering your carbon. Just take a look at areas like Chernobyl and Fukushima, and you will see, or even if you step back and look at areas like Hiroshima, you will see that the radiation is something that the nature of Earth itself has been able to overcome, to build upon, and to basically make a nil factor for life develops despite radiation. And if radiation is constant rather than infrequent, life develops in essence to it. Radiation in extreme amounts very quickly harms the individuals that get it. But radiation over a prolonged period, life over generations simply adapts, changes, and proceeds. So it is not necessarily the issue you think it is, as long as you find an appropriate way to store it, where it does not contaminate the immediate living areas. And when you think that roughly 97% of your people on the planet Earth, or perhaps more, live on between 1 and 3% of your land, you surely have places that such things can be taken care of. For this has been done in the past. Perhaps that shouldn't even be mentioned, as you want to keep this as that which science now accepts, and science does not realize the longevity or the history of the earth and of the various races of humanity for thousands and thousands of years. They think only in terms of how you as an individual species evolved and not of prior species of humanity. That aside, what we are telling you is very simple. Nuclear energy has a viable and realistic place in the Green New Deal. And if you will exploit it properly, it will be beneficial for humanity for centuries to come. We leave you with blessings and with peace. Peace be with each of you.